Hello, my name is Ashley, this is Faithful Rattos, and welcome or welcome back. So today's video is going to be another reacting to Reddit posts that I've found online. I have chosen ones that I think will be helpful to the person, but also in general helpful pieces of advice for other rat owners to hear, and that's how I've gone about choosing them. Where appropriate, I have already interacted with these posts to help that person out. I'm still in talks back and forth with some of them, so hopefully all of these problems will be resolved eventually. But since this video was quite well received last time I did it, and I do feel that this type of video does help to spread some advice that might not necessarily be spread otherwise, I think it is beneficial.
Why did my rat's fur turn white?
So this rat is what is called a roan, or a husky in some places. In the UK we call it roan. This type of rat will lose its colour over time. I have had a couple of rats that are roan, and they have roaned out to varying degrees. Some of them have been completely white by the end, some of them have remained quite dark in terms of their colour. I have one roan at the moment. Her name is Mara, and she is 27-ish months, something like that, so she's quite old now, and she has still a decent amount of colour on her, whereas some of the other roans I've got have been completely white at a year old. This is absolutely normal. The process behind this is basically every time a coloured hair falls out, a white one replaces it, which then eventually leads them to look kind of grey and white, and then it will fade out. I have a whole video on the genetics of the roan on my channel if you are interested, but this is completely normal, but I can see why some people would be worried or concerned about this happening. I feel like there's varying genes in other species that do similar things, like the grey genes in horses, or I think it's called the fading gene when it comes to dogs. Particularly poodles have this, where that will sort of cause them to fade out and lose their colour in a certain way. It's completely normal and natural and nothing to be worried about.
Is he enjoying the belly rubs? Thank you for your help.
So, as you can tell from this video, it is sort of unclear whether this rat likes it or not, and to be able to actually ascertain in this situation whether the rat was unhappy or not, I would definitely have to see more before and after this interaction. And if you are interested to know more about the behaviors of your rats, I would definitely recommend that you record a longer video that includes more of the context around the situation to help people to read that situation. However, I will say, if you are in this situation and you're unsure, I would definitely just stop and see how they react. If you pull your hand away, do they run away and come back? Do they freeze and stay scared looking? Do they stay engaged with you and sort of go from there? Rat behavior and body language is quite tricky to get your head around, but the more times you watch it and observe and really look, you can learn quite a lot. In this particular situation where the OP has the rat on its back rubbing its belly, this one I think is kind of more in the grey area for sure, because being in this position, especially inside of the cage, is actually what rats would do to show dominance over each other. And so when I see this, I wonder if the rat that's on its back is actually enjoying this, or if it's just accepting it because this is what it would do with another rat in a similar situation. That is definitely something to think about in that specific situation, but it is unclear from this video. So definitely make sure by giving them the choice and the chance to either leave and come back, or to re-engage with you, if that makes sense.
Little lumps on an albino rat. I've had my 2 rats for about a year now, and I started noticing little lumps on one of them. They are not attached to anything, but they're below the skin, so they're not acne or something, and the rat seems normal. I'm still concerned. Any help?
So there is a few different things that could be going on when you find a lump in one of your rats. The first thing is an abscess. These generally will heal pretty well by themselves in rats. It could be a cyst, which generally is kind of one of those things you can leave, or it could be a tumour, and this is something that generally you would want to address with removal, or perhaps if it's a mammary tumour, you could go on and try some medications. To figure out which one of these situations you are in, I do recommend taking them to the vet, and the location where the lumps are and something called a fine needle aspirate will help to tell you what type of lump you've got on your hands. If they do a fine needle aspirate and pus comes out, you know that this is an abscess. If gritty material comes out, this can indicate that it's a cyst, or it could be a tumour. It's kind of unclear to tell. Sometimes you put a needle into a tumour and nothing comes out. It's just tissue. Definitely consider also where it is on the body. If it is in this region on the underside near any of the armpits or leg pit region of the rat, it is kind of pretty likely to be a mammary tumour in does and sometimes in bucks as well. Bucks are also known to have a specific type of abscess called a preputral gland abscess, and these are little glands in their reproductive system that sit either side just above their penis and urethra area, and these can often get infected, especially with older rats, and these definitely can just heal themselves. Warm compress when it comes to head, keep it clean, and it'll be okay. But if you are unsure, I'd definitely get it checked out. And the smaller it is when you deal with it, in the terms of tumour, the easier it is to deal with, as there is less skin to like reattach and stuff like that. So definitely get it checked out. It could be either one of those things. Rats are pretty good at dealing with things, so it's usually not the end of the world, if that makes sense. It's usually not a life-ending sort of situation.
So back in September, I adopted this old lady, Peaches. She'll be 3 in December, and originally we gotten her because one of my first 2 rats had passed away out of the blue. We are technically her retirement home, and up until recently she's been happy and healthy. We took her to the vet a couple of months ago and found a tumour in her uterus that causes occasional bleeding. She's already been medicated for that, but as of late she's begun to walk like an old cowboy. I can't tell if her hips are the problem or if she's maybe just in pain. What do you think, Reddit? What can I do for her besides just taking to the vet for more meds?
Okay, in this video, it's kind of unclear what exactly is going on as it is quite short, but there are a couple of different differentials that could be at play here, and it's definitely something that I would go to the vet for further investigation. We could be just looking at HLD, which is probably the best option here, especially if the rat is pretty old. HLD can be caused by a few different things, and it's more like the symptom rather than the actual problem. You can have HLD that is caused by arthritis, and arthritis is painful, so the vet, if this is what is suspected, should offer you pain relief. It could also be because of nerve damage and nerve degradation, and this is not painful, it's just the nerves aren't working very well anymore, and the use of those limbs is hindered. It could also be down to kidney disease. This can affect mobility and cause HLD, especially in bucks. So if you are looking at the nerve degradation or kidney disease, HLD is not usually something to worry about. You don't generally need to do anything about it. It could also be something a little bit more sinister, like a UTI. UTIs, I find, are very weird in that they will just sort of create symptoms that you wouldn't necessarily associate with UTI. So the first one is sort of neurological type symptoms, and this strange sort of waddling with the back end. And you can kind of imagine that is probably due to pain associated with the urinary tract. And it happens in people as well, the neurological symptoms, that when you get a severe UTI, you can have confusion and other neurological things going on. It could also be an ear infection based on what looks to be an imbalance that rat has because of how it keeps turning in a circle. But it could also be just what it was doing at that one moment. But it is something to think about. And when it comes to ear infections, you definitely want to get on it straight away because they can cause quite a lot of damage in the inner ear and also sort of in the brain sometimes too. And the last option is something neurological. If a rat is walking like this and is also struggling to hold food, sort of doesn't seem quite right mentally and perhaps is behaving weirdly, I would sort of go to the more neurological side of it and possibly suspect something like a stroke or a pituitary tumor, but it's kind of hard to tell from this video. I would definitely be going to the vet, but those are a few differentials to look at to sort of figure out what is going on. Hopefully it is just HLD, which is pretty easy to manage. And if not, hopefully it is something that responds well to medication.
Rat pets in bedroom. I absolutely love rats. I've been doing research on giving them the best possible care in terms of socialization, bedding, hammocks, hides, water balls, enclosure sizes, vet bills, etc. And everything seems doable except for one thing. They would have to be in my room because I rent a room in a house. I've heard that males are pretty stinky, which honestly I wouldn't mind since I would go nose blind to it, but having friends over or roommates smelling it is an absolute no for me. I heard girls smell a bit less and they are more hyper but less snuggly than boys, which is fine. But I'm just wondering, would the smell be pretty bad with girls too, even with proper maintenance?
So, rats in the bedroom is another tricky one. I think it really depends on the person whether or not rats in the bedroom is a good idea. Here are a couple of things to consider. So, are you a light sleeper? Rats are crepuscular/nocturnal, and they will be milling around doing their things, drinking in the middle of the night. And if you are a light sleeper, this may hinder your sleep and might not be a bad idea. I do want to fight back a little bit about this boys smelling more. I don't think that is really accurate. They can sometimes produce more waste just because they are bigger, but I don't necessarily think that they smell more. However, I don't quite know where that is coming from. To ensure the smell is not overpowering, I would definitely recommend making sure you have a decent sized cage that is set up properly, a deep layer of loose substrate, not a bunch of hammocks, not a bunch of shelves, lots of active layout for them to explore, making sure you are cleaning appropriately and not over cleaning, because this can lead to them scent marking more and more and more as you remove their scent, which stresses them out. I do think that there are sometimes differences between having boys and girls. I don't think, though, it's a really clear cut answer. I think it depends where you get them from and the personality types that are sort of usual in that line, especially if you're going to a breeder. I think it's more down to the individual rat than anything. I do have a whole video about the differences between boys and girls if you're interested in watching it, but I don't think rats in a bedroom is necessarily a bad thing. I think it's absolutely fine to deal with.
Is this safe for my rats? What I ordered versus what I got. Is it still safe for them? I bought this in June, didn't open the box until now because I was finishing up their previous package of bedding, and I don't have any of the bedding for them at the moment. Ugh.
So I really wanted to assure this OP that pine is safe for rats. Despite what people say online that it is dangerous, kiln dried pine, which almost all, if not all, especially here in the UK, pine bedding options are kiln dried. It is absolutely safe. The phenols that are risky to rats in its natural state do not exist in such high levels when it has been kiln dried, and it is safe. I do think that we would have seen problems arising here in the UK if pine genuinely was so dangerous because of just how widely used it is. It's not dangerous. This is a myth that I think is perpetuated a lot by US small pet communities, but also in particular the hamster community. I don't think it is as dangerous as everyone says. It is a really decent option for substrate because it is very, very absorbent and it holds tunnels well. So it is beneficial for a lot of different species. And you can get lots of different brands that do pine shavings in lots of different sizes, which does help you to find the one that is right for you. If I was this OP, I would use this mistakenly purchased bedding or mistakenly sent bedding because I think it's absolutely fine. That being said, Aspen is also a safe option as well.
Is it okay to get rats if my roommate has a cat? For context, I've never owned rats, but I've wanted them for years, and I've worked in an animal hospital. I'm sure I could provide them a good life and give them the best care possible. The problem is I live in a small apartment and my roommate has a cat. I know that she does have a hunting drive as she watches birds outside and has killed flies in the apartment. I would of course keep the door to my room closed at all times, but we are wondering if the smell and presence of each other alone would be enough to stress both the cat and the rats out. Has anyone lived in this situation? Is it a bad idea?
Now, I understand the worry between keeping rats and other predator species in the same household. It is absolutely possible to do safely. You just need to ensure that the rats are in a room you can keep those pets out of when you are not around. Now, a lot of people will allow dogs, cats in the room with the rat cage under supervision, and that is also fine. Those predator animals should learn how to be neutral around those cages, and so it is definitely possible. I would also say that the smell can be a little bit stressful, the smell of cats to the rats, but I usually find that in the cases when it's not very common, but in the cases where the smell is stressful, it's usually that the cat smell is new to the rats, not that the rats are new to the household with cats in it. So I think it should be absolutely fine as long as you're sensible about keeping them separated. I don't think there's any worry. Lots and lots of people have dogs and cats and ferrets and other animals in their house with the rats, and it's just not a problem.
Help with rats smell. I'm a new ratty owner to 3 little girls. I did my research. They are loved and well cared for. They have an entire closet to free roam with cage, digging box, climbing tree and toys. I do deep cleans 1 to 2 times a week, changing bedding using a safe cleaner to wipe things down, but no matter what I do, it still smells pretty strong. I tried paper bedding, organic cotton, pea pads and even turf. I tried a litter box, but only one uses it. I'm not personally bothered by it, plus they're like this art room that's good ventilation and I can always close on the closet as needed. That said, I'm worried the smell is bad for them or dangerous. Like I know cat pee is bad to inhale all the ammonia. Is it the same?
So, this cage is smelly, and looking at it, I can tell you exactly why. This is going to be a little bit of a longer segment, similar to an earlier question, but if you are having no substrate at the bottom of your cage, it's going to smell because you have nothing to absorb the ammonia. That is what the main purpose of substrate is. Litter training can help because you can change that out more frequently, but the purpose of substrate is to absorb that smell. Fabric doesn't do that. Shelves, the ammonia just sits there. And this cage looks to be absolutely full of hammocks and shelves and nothing else. And so that is why it's going to be smelly. And also, with a cage like this, you are going to feel like you need to clean a lot because you do. But when you clean a rat's cage too much, this is actually very stressful for them, and that stress will cause them to scent mark even more, which will cause the smell to be even more, which will then cause you to clean more, and then they'll scent mark more, and then you'll clean more, and then they'll scent mark more, and it's really not sustainable. So what I would recommend in this situation is that you think about the size of the cage, because this does look to me like it's too small, although I don't exactly know the measurements of it, and then make sure it's laid out properly, and you should find that they're not that smelly. Now, don't get me wrong, every pet has a smell to them. You don't just never have a smell. But having a properly laid out enclosure and a proper cleaning routine will keep that smell, or the bad smell, the odor, to a minimum.
My vet says my boys might have to get castrated. I have 2 boys, and one of them, the one in the picture, is a Harley. He's got sin issues ever since I got him, but I knew that came with the package. I couldn't just get his brother and not him too. They get along well, but they play fight a lot. They've never drawn blood or anything, and they don't bite each other, only flying kicks and slaps. Even so, since my Harley boy has such delicate skin, even play fights like that irritate his skin, and he's even had to go on antibiotics for a week. My vet told me if I can't get them to not fight anymore, then castration might have to generally be considered. What do you guys think about this? What should I expect if we go through with the surgery? What should I be warned about?
In this situation, I would say it's quite complicated and there's lots of factors here. The first one that I would think about here is that actually the pair dynamic is quite a stressful dynamic for rats to live in. It's absolutely not natural to them. This is not how they would live in the wild. And studies have shown a similar level of stress in rats that live in pairs to rats that live by themselves. And so it's definitely something that you should be avoiding. You should be keeping a rolling group. I have a video on my channel about rolling groups if you're interested, and it should be something that you are looking to rectify pretty soon, because having a pet also does run the risk of a lone rat situation at any point. Now, in the case of these rats in particular, it is a issue that this rat is a Harley, and this is why I don't think it's ethical to breed at all, because these rats, having no undercoat, have absolutely no protection from the usual little scuffles or little situations that rat claws can leave. Now, we all know that rats scratch all the time. My hands are absolutely covered in rat scratches every single day, and my arms as well. And my rats are not trying to fight with me. Their claws are just a little bit sharp. And for a rat that doesn't have proper undercoat, that doesn't have proper fur, getting scratched up is normal, and it's because they don't have any protection to their skin. So I definitely recommend that you keep their nails short and any of the rats in the cage's nails short. But in this situation, I don't generally think that neutering will be a fix to this solution, because I do feel that this perhaps is quite accidental. Now, I have asked for further information from this OP, including some video of the fight that they mention, because it's kind of hard to tell just from a description of words what these fights are actually like. And this no blood, no foul rule is quite unhelpful, I find, because blood can be accidental, especially with just small little scratches. That's not necessarily from a fight. And there can be concerning behaviour very, very evident before any blood is drawn. So it's definitely something that I don't feel comfortable with people using. I think it's quite outdated, and that we should be looking more at the behaviours in particular rather than whether they are actually injuring each other. So yeah, definitely next time, don't get Harley rats. Make sure the nails are short. Have a look into making your group slightly bigger to release some of that tension, and also have somewhat experienced people look at these behaviors to make sure they're actually fighting and not just generally being rats, because I do worry that we will castrate when it's not completely necessary.
Elderly boy now solo, torn about next step. This post, I guess, is a sounding board as I'm so torn about what to do with my boy Ron. I lost his brother Tyre 2 days ago, and that leaves Ron now alone. He has lost 6 brothers this year. It's been a rubbish year. Ron is 2 months old, and so an older boy. I took him to the vet as he's very snuffly sounding. The vet said it doesn't sound great in his lower lungs. Could be tumours, could be nasty mycoplasma fur, could be his heart, etc. Basically, he could have antibiotics, etc., but might not treat it, just reduce impact. I've been distraught trying to think about what to do with my poor boy as he's lost his brother. Him being on his own is just not an option. I won't put him through the stress of that. He could go to a new home now, but that's a lot of stress. New home, new rats, he's elderly and a bit unwell. So how well would he do in a new group? Would he be accepted, or would he be bullied? He might thrive, he might not. My vet suggested it might be kinder to euthanize him. He said he would avoid the stress of being alone or having to move, and he's unwell anyway. He might have months or it could be weeks, so euthanasia removes the stress of it. I'm so sad and lost. I keep going back and forth on what rehoming or euthanasia. Logically, I feel euthanasia as he won't know any stress. Rehoming seems to have so many unknowns for him. Making that final decision is just so hard. Thoughts, please. Be gentle.
Now, this situation is really, really hard, and I do want to preface this by saying I definitely don't think that death is the worst thing that could happen to an animal. And if there was absolutely no way to rehome this rat, I don't think euthanizing at this point would be wrong. I think to leave them on their own would be the wrong, or the only wrong thing to do in this situation. That being said, I do want to cut through this myth that older rats can't cope with being rehomed, or that it's too much for them, or that it's too stressful, because it's absolutely not. As somebody who has taken in, I want to say 10 or something like that, older rats at this point, who have absolutely thrived with their new company, it's not as stressful as you make out. We humanize them too much, and rats don't find it as stressful as you would think to move house. They don't find it as stressful as you think to be in introductions. It is stressful, don't get me wrong. It's not that there is no stress, but that stress is minimal, it's short lived, and it's worth it to see them in a new group with friends. And this is something that I would strongly, strongly urge anybody in a similar situation to think about, that even if it's only for a few extra weeks or a few months, it is definitely worth it to have that company. I send lots of love and healing thoughts to this person as they make this decision. But I do hope that in general we don't write off the good time that is still left for a lot of these elderly rats in a similar situation, because I have personally seen with my own two eyes over and over again that they absolutely thrive and they love their new company, and it's definitely something that I would hope for rats in that situation. Okie dokie, that is the end of this video. I hope you found this helpful or interesting, and I hope you learned something new. If you would like to see more content from me, I make videos like this. I make educational style content. I make videos about my own experiences with rats and sometimes budgies, and I also vlog. If you're interested, please do stick around, subscribe, and see more that is coming on my channel. And if you are even more interested, you could become a channel member with lots of cool perks. At the highest tier, you can help me name my rats. And yeah, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!